Okay, so let's move on to the mixer of that we're going to be reviewing this week, which is what Richard selected, Silky from all the flavors. And I mixed up Lemonade Tropics, and Richard mixed up Buttermilk Pie and French Toast. So I'll talk about Lemonade Tropics first off, Richard, and then you can talk about those other two. So I've got it in here. I've been vaping this now since I saw you on Saturday. So 2 to 3 days. Um, what this is a tropical lemonade, right? But what is really interesting here is, so what Silky did was he made a lemonade base with LA lemonade and Inawera lemonade mix, which is a bitter lemon, but it's good because he wanted grapefruit elements in the mix. So that Inawera lemon mix, that bitter note that it's got to it, simulates what a grapefruit would taste like. Um, if you just take Inawera lemon and you do a back of the hand test, you quickly realize that this is not going to be something that you can do a single flavor mix with. It's way too bitter. It won't be pleasant. So that's what his lemonade base was. And then what he used Inawera cactus to flesh out the whole mix. Because we're dealing here with a lot of middle notes and top notes, so something for the body is very necessary. Okay. It also, I believe that this Inawera cactus, with the Inawera lemon mix, it boosts grapefruit notes in this mix. So I think it helps, do that. And then we've got the tropic section, which is dragon fruit and pink lady. Now, he used these two here to create tropical top notes. But, of course, pink lady, when you mix this up first, if you try it on day one, the lemon and the florals are very in front and they're fighting a little bit. That's day one. But on day two, the lemon pulls back and the floral is right in front. And, I was a little bit worried on day one, but day two, this whole mix made a lot of sense for me. Pink Lady that is used over here is the tropical top note that binds the whole mix together, and it does that really beautifully. So I just wanted to, almost congratulate Silky for figuring this out, because, it's kind of a lesson for me now. I've not really tried out any florals before, so this one here has given me a whole new perspective. Because if you look at the whole mix, I don't have it. I don't have it open here. Let me just open it up. Yeah, if you look at the whole mix, so you've got LA Lemonade, Inawera Lemon Mix, Inawera Cactus, Dragon Fruit, Pink Lady, WS23. That's what you have. So there's a lot of middle notes. I mean, Inawera Cactus, Dragon Fruit, I would think those are kind of like in the middle. And then the lemons and the florals right at the top. And what you would think here is that these top notes and these middle notes will be battling with each other, but because the floral is there, I'm not saying that for all florals, but this specific one, it really binds those middle and top notes together, and you end up with this tropical amazingness. Very, very cool. So in the mix, he didn't add any sweetener in. This makes the mix a little bit, for me personally, I've got a bit of a sweet tooth. But he also says there that he doesn't believe that this mix is completely finished. And I'm not saying that if you add 0.3% super sweet that now this mix is complete. Excuse me. But I did that. I added 0.3% super sweet because I'm not a big grapefruit fan, but grapefruit and sugar, different story. And yeah, and I boosted up the WS23, the coolant to 1%. And I'm really amazed with this mix. After day one, I thought I won't mix this up again, but I'm definitely going to be mixing this up again. And yeah, I just wanted to thank Silky for that lesson and florals.
Okay, I mixed up two of his. I'll start with the French toast. It's a profile I've been interested in for a while. His description is buttery French toast with maple syrup and powdered sugar on top. No real surprises or mystery elements in the recipe. The base is RFSC French toast. That's backed up by FA Zeppela and a little bit of AP in there just for some crunch, and then the TPA butter just to add the buttery note. A little bit of Inawera custard to thicken it out, and then the maple syrup, cinnamon and powdered sugar come from basically those three concentrates: FA maple syrup, OO powdered sugar, and Flavora rich cinnamon. So I was pretty excited about this because, as I say, it's a profile I've been chasing for a while, and it's one of the most bizarre juices I've ever tasted. This is what I would call a David Blaine mix. You can imagine David Blaine, the street musician, going onto a sidewalk in New York with a frying pan and all the ingredients, mixing up a French toast with a maple syrup, sugar and cinnamon coating, and then he gives it to a person to try, and he says, take a bite of this, and the person takes a bite, and there's no toast in it. It's just the covering. And then David Blaine opens his mouth, and the toast's in David Blaine's mouth, not in the other oaks. That's the trick to this whole thing. It is the most disembodied vape I've ever had. It's just incredible. Mm. When you first vape it, on the inhale, you get this, you feel the butter, you feel the cinnamon, the powdered sugar, the maple, it's all there on the inhale. Mm. As you draw it into your lungs, it just vanishes. It's like, where is the toast? I mean, it's just gone. And then when you exhale, you again get that covering. You get the cinnamon, you get the powdered sugar and the maple syrup on the exhale, but there's nothing in between. Mm. It's the most weird vape I've ever had. Now, I know RFSC flavors do struggle with lack of body. They get the flavor right. They quite like Flavora in that sense, or some of the Flavora. They get the flavor right, but there's just no body to the mix. There's no substance to it. And that's what I'm getting here, which is surprising because it's got Zeppela, it's got Inawera custard in there, and a little bit of AP, just to give it some body. But even with that, it's almost like the RFSC French toast just sucks every other flavor out of the mix and just leaves that savory, that sweet and savory crust that is around the French toast. Mm. I mean, there's nothing off with the mix. The flavor is fine, but there's no texture and there's no body. So it's like having essence of French toast, but not actually having French toast. And this, to me, it reiterates the importance of texture and body in a mix. It's not just a case of getting the flavor right. You've got to have the texture and the body. And I don't think it's any fault of Silky's. I think it's just that the base French toast note that he chose for this mix, which is the RFSC French toast, just doesn't have any oomph to it. It doesn't have any body behind it, and that permeates the entire mix. And I don't know how you could fix it, because adding more donut or biscuit or whatever is going to push the profile in that direction. I mean, a French toast is a very specific profile. You can't get there with waffles and biscuits and such like. So it was a really interesting mix.
Is there eggy notes in that French toast?
No. You'd think that the Inwera custard would add some of that, but not really. Not really. The actual the base flavor itself is just a generic, unsweetened, pretty bland bakery, which would be fine on its own if it added some body, but it doesn't do that even. So you've got to mix with this giant hole in the middle where the texture and the mouthfeel is supposed to be, and there's nothing there. So you get these wispy top notes, which are quite flavorful. I mean, it's on point. The profile is right. You're getting the notes that you're supposed to be getting, but there's just nothing in the vape. It actually feels like when you inhale, you draw it into your mouth. When you draw it into your lungs, it's like the vape went out the back of your throat instead of going down. There's just no feeling there at all. It's quite bizarre to experience and hard to describe, but that's the best way I can describe it.
How do you think you would be able to blend everything a little bit better? Well, not better, in a way that you won't get such a disjointed experience. You know what I mean?
I don't know. It would require a workable French toast flavor, and there isn't one as far as I know. It's not a profile that a lot of manufacturers tackle. RAF tried to do it, real flavors, and it's the same problem that affects a lot of their concentrates. There's just no body to it. So I don't know how one would get around it. I mean, as I say, you can put waffles and stuff in there, but then you're moving it off profile. French toast is not a waffle.
Yeah.
So I'll probably mix with it again, maybe try upping the Zeppela a bit, or adding some other things in there. Even things like sweet rice might, move it in the direction of just having a bit of body. But for now, for me, it's the David Blaine vape. It's the vape that just vanishes in your mouth as if by magic. It's quite incredible. Then the second one that I tried was the buttermilk pie. This hasn't been up for long, and already it has 4 5-star reviews, and it thoroughly deserves them. Quite a simple recipe, and to me, this recipe kind of encompasses what mixing is all about. He creates a crust out of FA apple pie and Jove biscuit. Then he creates a custard filling, out of TFA toasted marshmallow and Inwera custard. And then to get the buttermilk aspect of it, he mixes quite a high amount of TFA butter, 1% TFA butter, with 3% TFA whipped cream to get that sort of buttermilk filling. So it's 3 layers of a recipe. Each layer is 2 flavors that complement each other and round each other out into a better result than a single standalone flavor would be. And the 3 layers just fit together perfectly, courtesy of the TFA whipped cream, which tends to do that. It blends layers together very nicely. And it just works so well. It's a sweet recipe, which is surprising because there's no sucralose in it, there's no sweetener in it. So I'm not sure where that sweetness is coming from. There will be some in the toasted marshmallow, some in the Jove biscuit, some in the whipped cream, but certainly not at the level that the overall recipe provides. And this to me is pretty much on the same level as Mr. Burgundy's St. Louis butter cake. It really is that good. It's a very sweet, very velvety, very smooth, very rich buttermilk pie. That butter and whipped cream mix is an absolutely brilliant base for buttermilk. If you're looking for anything buttermilk, 1% TFA butter, 3% TFA whipped cream seems to be an absolutely banging base for that. So it gives you that richness of the butter, but at the same time, the lightness of the whipped cream. And this just hangs together superbly. As I said, maybe a little bit too sweet for my palate, so it's not something that I could vape all day, but certainly for 10, 15 minutes at a time as a really rewarding and thick and refreshing, sweet, decadent, rich buttermilk pie, it absolutely hits the spot. I can alternate with this and Silky butter cake, just 15 minutes of each once a day, and that gives me all the richness I want from my vape. This recipe hangs together really, really, really well. So I commend Silky highly on that. I would give that 5 stars if I could give a rating, but it's a recipe that's gained a lot of traction, a lot of popularity in a very short time, and for good reason. It's simple mixing, but mixing at its best.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, the recipe over here: apple pie, biscuit, butter, custard, toasted marshmallow, whipped cream. You know, bang.
They're all banging ingredients as well. I mean, some people might say there wasn't much risk because it's flop-proof ingredients, but you still got to get it to hang together, and it does that.
Cool. So yeah, Silky, thank you very much. I really enjoyed the mix that I made. It seems like Richard has also had a good experience here with buttermilk pie, right?
Yeah, he gives really good notes on it as well. Describes each of the ingredients in depth and tells you why they work together and why he used them together. So that was educational. That was a really rewarding recipe to mix up. If you have the ingredients, highly recommended that one.
Cool. All right, so let's move over to concentrates. So I'm going to talk about raw fantasy grape. Now, I'm chasing, for the people that are watching the show, internationally, we call it chappies over here. It's a really cheap bubblegum, but it has, we've got a great version of that, which is just, it's so addicting. That I've been chasing that, and I've been using TFA's fruity bubblegum, a fruity juicy juicy bubblegum. What is it? Fruity juicy bubblegum. And then I've also been playing around with the capped bubblegum as well. So still I've been working with it, but I've just come to the conclusion that with fantasy grape, it's a really, really good candy grape. And I'm almost 100% sure this is what they use in Cloud Nerds. I think I've got some Cloud Nerds here. I'm sure that's what they're using in here. And this is an international, I'm not sure where this comes from. But yeah, it says here made in USA. So I'm almost 100% sure that's what they're using in Cloud Nerds. But if you want to apply this fantasy grape anywhere else, you're going to struggle to do that. If it's not in a candy, trying to get that candy note out of this grape is almost impossible. Now, if you try it as a beverage, and I've tried that. I've tried this as a beverage. I think there's better beverage grapes out there, like Flavor West grape soda. And that one seems to work also nicely. You can apply it to a lot, but this here is a little bit more specific. This is a candy grape. So, if anybody is interested to play around with, a really good, but you can't really apply it in so many ways, grape or candy grape, this is one to get. But don't take this one if you're looking to use it in a couple of different profiles, because this is a candy only. I don't think you'll be able to mute that candy note. So I went up all the way to 7%, and at 7% it's insane, especially if you've got a little bit of cotton candy in with the grape, with this fantasy grape, then the candy note in it becomes almost overwhelming. So yeah, I wouldn't suggest that any higher than, I would say, 6%. If you still want to taste decent amount of grape opposed to the candy portion of it. So yeah, all in all, I had fun with it. If I'm looking at creating a candy, I'll be using this in there. It's got a fantastic candy note in it.
Cool. I tried FW Beetlejuice, which is another one of those weird sort of generic fruity flavors from FW, like Magma Current or Hawaiian Island Punch or Happy Hour, or any of these sort of fruity mixes that FW comes up with on a regular basis. This is reputed to be the best one in the Flavor West line, and it certainly is decent. It's a flavor that gained traction with the Sherb clone that some bloke was chasing for like 2 years until he came across this flavor. I mixed mine up at 5%, which is pretty standard for Flavor West, and it's actually not bad. It's a fruit medley, but what I'm getting primarily from it, I think the one sort of distinguishable top note that I'm getting from it is a pineapple note. What it feels like to me is that in the middle, or at least at the base, there's a sort of syrupy raspberry type note, and then in between the pineapple top note and the raspberry base, there's kind of a generic, not very realistic, sweetened orange juice. The overall feel is I would say it's quite a strong candy-based vape more than a beverage-based, because it lacks that juiciness that you would want from a beverage vape. This one is fairly dry. It also has almost a powdery, quite a lot of candy flavors have that powdery feel to them, and it's not very prominent in this. It's not as prominent as you get in, say, bubblegum flavors, but it is there. There's that sort of powdery feel to it, along with that syrupy texture that you get. So overall, I'd say it's a hard candy type flavor, but drenched in syrup, if that makes sense. Quite a good generic fruit mix. There's nothing that stands out too heavily. I think that pineapple will blend in quite well with most fruits that you throw at it. But I would say to use this primarily where you're going for a fruity candy sort of vibe. If you want something to just brighten up the flavors considerably, to add some sweetness and to add some of that candy-like texture, this will probably take top notes quite well, and it'll just buff it out into that sort of syrupy candy that you're looking for. So generally quite a useful flavor. I don't think it's the best candy flavor out there, but I can see this being useful for quite a number of applications. It'll fit well with most fruits, and it does add that candy aspect to it. So fairly versatile flavor.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm thinking about getting that. Just because I'm really playing around with candies and bubble gums and gummies. It seems to be just where I'm finding my comfort zone right now. Originally when I started mixing up or DIYing, it was all about desserts and creams, and somehow I find myself now in the candy realm, and I have been candies and beverages, right? And when I say beverages, I'm not talking about coffees and teas and stuff like that. More, like sugar sodas, that kind of thing. Sugary sodas. Sure, thank you very much. Richard, anything else?
No, I think you'll like this if you're into your candies, because it will be useful and versatile
Mm.
in candies, and it's got that sort of pineapple gummy feel
Mm.
to it.
Yeah, I'll definitely pick it up on my next order.